Chapter 186, Double Tamers, and you'll have to be very careful, Larissa whispered, not to tell anyone that all three of us are double tamers now. Luna frowned. What are you talking about? We're not. A faint glow suddenly enveloped the two girls, so brief it could have been mistaken for a flicker of the lamps. Larissa covered her mouth in feigned surprise while her cousin stared at her with enormous eyes, suddenly understanding. Oh! Larissa smiled behind her hand. It seems we're all the same. You, Leora looked at her empty cup. The drink. Did you just? Luna seemed at a loss for words. Give you potions? Larissa completed cheerfully. Of course. We're family after all. But... Leora whispered, my father wanted... But your grandmother will surely be delighted, Larissa assured. The Ashen Ways support female double tamers, right? You don't understand, my grandmother was... Luna wasn't faring better. The few men left in the family, my father is going to... Luna murmured. They don't have to find out. Larissa winked. Not until it's too late to do anything about it. The two girls fell silent processing what had just happened. Wasn't too late already? Their beast stirred within them. Why? Leora finally asked. Because things have to change, Larissa responded, her expression becoming serious for the first time. We can prove that we're valuable investments, too. Investments? Luna looked at her curiously. Oh, yes. Larissa smiled mysteriously. For the future, one that promises very interesting things, especially now that a certain boy with glowing mushrooms is involved. Larissa, Leora began, but her cousin interrupted her. Now! Larissa clasped her hands with enthusiasm. What beasts would you like as second companions? The two girls stared at her open-mouthed at her casual change of topic, but Larissa only smiled more broadly. What? She asked with feigned innocence. Don't tell me you've never dreamed of having a second beast? I have several ideas. Her mineral fairy glowed cheerfully while she began enumerating possibilities, leaving her cousin still trying to process how their life had just changed with a simple cup of tea. 50 more, Ren ordered, his mushrooms pulsing in red and yellow with what seemed like too much joy. But we already did 100. Min complained, his arms trembling. Oh! Ren smiled in a disturbingly similar way to Lin. You want them to be 100 more then? No! 3 voices responded in unison. Master Lin will be proud. Ren commented while watching his friend suffer. You're learning the importance of not complaining. Taro tried to say something, but only managed an exhausted groan. Knocks on the door interrupted the torture session. Ren went to open it, finding Julius and Victor. I see you're busy. Julius smiled, seeing the 3 boys practically melting on the floor. Just some basic training, Ren responded innocently, about the scorpion cores. Julius went straight to the point. Since you took the trouble to work on them, could I take them? We want to do some experiments. Experiments? We're trying to understand how Yaino gets their abyssal beasts, Julius explained. Ren nodded. Of course. I can also give you the crystals from the leftover scales. Not necessary. Julius shook his head. In fact, you can keep 10 of the cores and the remaining crystals to do your own experiments. Thanks, Ren added, but they still need to be filled with 100,000 mana crystals each. Victor, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. Do you know how to make other types of eggs besides those scorpions? The 3 boys on the floor suddenly seemed to find new energy for their exercises, moving with suspicious intensity while looking away and sweating cold. Yes, Ren responded casually. The bug, too, not just the scorpion. His mushrooms pulsed softly while he avoided mentioning that he could create practically any species up to the gold ring one. Julius noticed how Ren's friends suddenly doubled their efforts in the exercises again, as if wanting to appear too busy to be interrogated. I see, Victor murmured, taking another step toward Ren. Julius stopped with a hand on his shoulder, leaning to whisper in his ear. We shouldn't pressure him for now. Victor nodded reluctantly, though his eyes shone with barely contained curiosity. Well, Julius smiled. I'll bring you a gift for the information later. I expect great things from the future new noble who opened the last seed. He looked meaningfully at the three boys who were still exercising frantically. I think now you should return to your training. Oh, right. Rin turned to his friends with a smile that made them shudder. Where were we? Ah, yes, 100 more repetitions. The groans of protest were music to his ears. As the princes withdrew, they could hear Ren counting cheerfully. 1. Harder. 2. I don't see you suffering enough. Definitely Lin's student. Julius laughed softly. Do you think he knows how to make more types of eggs? Victor asked as they walked away. Oh, I'm almost certain, Julius smiled. But for now, let's let him keep some secrets for the new team to discover. You can rest for a moment. Rin smiled while his mushrooms pulsed cheerfully. Min, Taro, and Lu collapsed instantly, their agitated breathing being the only sound in the room. You know, Rin sat near them, his tone surprisingly animated for someone who had just tortured his friends. Before coming here, I used to read the Wandering King's book. I always thought the magical medicines to become a double tamer would be in some far and mysterious place. And they ended up being almost in the heart of the city. Rin laughed softly. Right beneath our feet. What irony! Lu murmured from the floor. Knocks on the door interrupted the moment. Zhao and Lin entered, carrying several packages and materials. Did you break them already? Lin smiled, seeing the three boys lying on the floor. Just some basic training, Rin responded, imitating her tone. That's my student. Lin nodded with approval. Rin approached to examine the materials, while his friends tried to recover the ability to move. We got almost everything, Zhao explained, but we couldn't find the raptor core or Lu's hyena one. They didn't have complete specimens and had already sent the cores to the castle. We had to buy some silver rank parts too, Lin added. They only had high quality in stock, pieces that almost nobody buys. They cost us 100,000 total for the parts of those two rare beasts. No problem. Rin nodded while his mushrooms pulsed. I have some free cores now. I can make those too. Although, he grimaced, I'm running low on tentacles. About that, Zhao smiled. Don't worry, the last excursion is near. The third collection of the semester. Well, second in your case. My unit's final exam. Your territory again? Ren's mushrooms pulsed with more intensity. Exactly, Zhao nodded. And with everything you've shown, you'll surely pass with honors. Rin began organizing the materials while preparing the necessary runes. The final exams begin, he murmured while tracing the first pattern. Lin observed her student work, a proud smile on her face. On the floor, the three boys finally began to sit up, their muscles protesting from the effort. The sun was setting over the academy, its last rays illuminating the room through the window. Soon the trials would begin, but for now, in this moment, everything seemed to be in its place. Rin continued drawing runes, his mushrooms pulsing softly while he thought about everything that had happened since he arrived at the academy. The impossible evolutions, the transformation potions, the ancestral seed, and this was just the beginning. Are you ready for your own exercise? Lin asked. Rin looked at his friends, now double tamers thanks to him, looked at his teachers, who trusted in his knowledge despite his age, looked at the runes he was tracing, runes that nobody else knows. His mushrooms pulsed one more time while he smiled. Always. End of Volume 1. Chapter 187, Triple Tamers. The council chamber in Yaino was a perfect reflection of his philosophy, dark, practical, and serious. The black stone walls absorbed the light from the purple crystals, creating shadows that seemed to move of their own volition. The darkness writhed and twisted at the edges of vision, as if alive. 6 figures sat around a circular table carved from black crystal, magical obsidian. The material had been specifically chosen for its ability to absorb and contain abyssal energy, making it nearly impossible for any beast to spy on the meetings. The king occupied the main seat, his face partially hidden by shadows while he studied the maps scattered across the table. His presence seemed to make the very air heavier, more oppressive. Let me understand the situation, he rose slowly. The shadows seemed to stretch with him, as if they were an extension of his body. He began walking around the table, his steps resonating on the stone with deliberate weight. 2 weeks. The king of Yaino observed the leader of the Venmont family. 2 weeks without a single report from this herald kid. Can none of your plans work? Lord Venmont maintained his firm posture despite the pressure. My lord, the training we provided was the most rigorous possible. If he hasn't reported, it must be because he's following the maximum security protocol. Protocol? The crown prince, seated at the king's right, arched an eyebrow. Or did you simply lose control of your agent? A girl seated in the last chair leaned forward, as if wanting to better see Lord Venmont's reaction, but the king raised a hand. She immediately straightened, returning to her position as a silent observer. Harold was personally modified by our family, Venmont continued. His abyssal beast is perfectly studied by us and adapted to the mission. It's possible he's underground, transporting the key, unable to send messages without compromising his position. The king turned to Lord Bloodwin, ignoring Venmont's explanation. What about your part? We've completed the study on the beast cultivation you requested, Bloodwin responded. The girl visibly straightened, her eyes gleaming with interest. And you think with just that I'll forget your failure with the Shadow Stalkers? The king interrupted. The mana devourers that were supposed to help us accelerate the release of our last seed? Bloodwind tensed. My lord, the mercenaries never returned. They had a very good reputation, but must have. I don't want to hear your excuses again. It's ridiculous that in trying to accelerate our seed, we managed to accelerate Yano's seed instead. The king cut him off. We extracted its mana from our control vein by taking so much for our abyssals. But from here we can't replicate the process with our own seed. The only plausible way was using a swarm of mana devourers. Right? The theory makes sense, Bloodwind tried to explain. But without mana devourers in our territory to study, if we had been able to... You failed, that's all. Both of you did. And instead of taking advantage of knowing about Yano's last seed's release before them, you only give us useless reports. Excuses, the prince spat the word. The king finally turned to Lord Ravenspire. And the scorpions I asked for? The girl moved uncomfortably in her seat, as if wanting to say something. But again the king silenced her with a gesture. Hagen managed to map much of the subsoil. Ravenspire responded carefully. Although he didn't manage to obtain any cores, his contribution was... These maps... The king laughed humorlessly, signaling. We have maps, but Yano now knows we can infiltrate from the depths and control the abyssals to a certain extent. All that important information, they got thanks to your famous mercenary. Do you know how many years this sets back our plans? My lord, Ravenspire leaned forward. If you allow me to explain, perhaps Hagen didn't carry out the operation in the best way, but he himself lent his body risking everything for the kingdom and his loyalty to you. He helped us discover something else, something that could change everything. The king's interest visibly stirred. What? A safe way to obtain a third beast. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the abyssal crystals seemed to contain their crackling. Impossible! The prince broke the silence. So soon? Hagen confirmed it himself already. Ravenspire continued. There is a method, but it was only possible because he already has a gold rank beast. Still, we can... And he wasn't consumed. There are no other side effects. The king interrupted. If what you say is true, there are no problems for the moment, Ravenspire assured. The process seems safe in powerful tamers like him. We just have to observe him a bit more and obtain the necessary knowledge to... The girl suddenly rose from her seat, her eyes shining intensely. The king looked at her for a moment before nodding. Is it true? Her childish voice contrasted strangely with the chamber's atmosphere. We can have 3 beasts already? Sit down, Celthea, the king ordered softly. The girl obeyed immediately, though her eyes still shone with contained excitement. Explain the new details. The king addressed Ravenspire. All of them. The king raised a hand once he had understood most of the explanation. Lastly, he turned to Venmont. Have the Gold Crest reported anything? Venmont visibly tensed. The situation with our allies has become complicated. Complicated? The prince leaned forward. Since Bloodwind's mercenaries failed in their attempt to kidnap the Klein boy, Venmont carefully chose his words. The Gold Crest have expressed their discontent with our methods. Discontent? The king repeated softly, though his tone contained a veiled threat. They complain about our lack of professionalism, Venmont continued. The plan was to use Klein's kidnapping as a negotiation chip in Yano, accelerate the open conflict between the cities. But the failure has only made Yano more cautious, the king completed. It was difficult enough convincing them to help with Harold's infiltration, Venmont added. And that only worked because Cashin himself took the job instead of his father. The young Gold Crest, the king murmured, always more adventurous than the old one. Their communications have become more sporadic, which doesn't help with Harold's situation either, Venmont concluded. It seems they fear our unorthodox methods might expose them. The king remained silent for a moment. I will handle that, he finally declared. The Gold Crest need understand they're already too involved to have doubts now. My lord, Venmont bowed respectfully. How do you plan to? They have a point about professionalism. The king interrupted again. Perhaps it's time to show them how Yino works when it decides to be truly professional. The smile that accompanied those words made even Celthea shrink slightly in her seat. Now, the king turned his attention to Ravenspire. Bring Hagen. I want to know exactly what he is now. The three lords rose and bowed before withdrawing, leaving the king with his son and the girl. Can I go see when they bring Hagen? Celthea asked immediately. No, the king responded. Chapter 188, Taming Procedures. Ren traced the final runes on Zhao's camouflage raptor core, while his other projects rested in different stages of development. Lin's panther lizard glowed with a reddish tone, Lu's banshee hyena emitted green pulses, and Min's invisible amphibian, well, it was already starting to occasionally disappear. Only one complete egg remained unclaimed. Come on. Ren looked at Taro, who was observing the egg of what would be a bronze rank-deep assassin, as if it might bite him. It's not as bad as you think. Not bad. Min laughed, waiting until his mouth elongates like a giant straw. Assassins are known for their proboscises, Lu added with a mischievous smile. Imagine drinking tea like that. Lu made an exaggerated gesture, pretending to sip with an imaginarily long mouth, causing Min to burst into laughter. Don't listen to them, Ren sighed. The bug's qualities don't manifest that way at first. You won't even have the absorption ability yet. It's just iron rank and not a complete deep assassin. Taro kept looking at the egg with distrust. Are you sure? Completely, Ren nodded. For now you'll only have the claws and carapace. When you develop vitality absorption, you'll channel it through them. Your mouth won't turn into a proboscis unless you move to Yino. See, Min smiled. You just have to avoid moving to Yino and keep your beautiful smile. But seriously, Ren continued, ignoring the jokes, think about the advantages. You'll be able to summon your living tunnel fully and still have a carapace. But won't it be weaker? Taro asked. A bit less resistant, Ren admitted. But the long claws ability and the new carapace directly benefit from living mineral. The bug line has a natural disposition for acquiring trophies, like some other insects. It can easily adhere materials to its carapace. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while he entered explanation mode. Besides, he continued, your tunnel's 60% defense will affect the bug's 30% defense. That gives you a total 90% defense over the two defensive layers. Taro began showing interest. And I'll just be a defender like always? The bug's attack is 40%, Ren smiled. Combined with the little your tunnel gives you, you'll finally have 60% instead of just 20%. You'll be a real threat when attacking. A threat with a straw, Lu murmured, earning an elbow from Min. So I won't have to absorb with my mouth? Taro asked one last time. Not while you're in Yano, Ren assured. The claws will be your main absorption method. The proboscis is a specific adaptation that involves more than just a long mouth. Taro looked at the egg for a long moment, clearly weighing the advantages against his aesthetic concern. 90% defense, he murmured. And 60% attack, Ren added. And 0% proboscis. Min laughed. For now, Lu added with a malicious smile. Taro finally extended his hand toward the egg, trying to ignore Lu. All right, but if I start developing any kind of strange appendage, we'll help you find very large hats to cover it, Min solemnly promised. Or decorative face masks, Lu suggested. Guys, Ren looked at them reproachfully, though his mushrooms pulsed with amusement. It's okay. Taro smiled while taking the egg. I guess the synergy plus 90% defense is worth the risk. The ritual began making Taro and his egg glow while they connected. That's the spirit, Rin nodded. Besides, think how useful it'll be if you ever need to drink something from the bottom of a very tall glass. Ren! Taro protested while the others burst into laughter. Ren's mushrooms pulsed cheerfully while he returned to his work. For eggs, 5 new beasts, 5 new paths to explore, and only one potential straw problem in the future. Ren had taught everyone how to cultivate. Lu's crystals had to be processed in complete darkness. Darker. Lu complained while trying to process his crystals. You say it has to be total darkness, but your mushrooms keep glowing. Ren concentrated. Tried to extinguish the soft pulse of light his mushrooms emitted, but every time he thought he'd succeeded, they would glow faintly again. Sorry, Ren apologized. I can't turn them off completely. After several failed attempts, Ren had to admit defeat. I think you'll have to do it yourself. He explained the process in detail. The crystals needed to bathe in shadow beast blood for at least an hour in complete darkness, then be sealed with pure crystals maintaining the same condition. Fortunately, Ren had blood and crystals from the shadow stalkers in the cave, a rare resource and more expensive at school where most crystals were earth-based due to underground mining. Lu's sonar proved perfect for the work. He could navigate in total darkness without problems, completing the process with precision that Ren couldn't have achieved with his treacherously luminous mushrooms. Meanwhile, Taro had already begun absorbing his crystals to jump directly to Bronze 2. For Ren, the investment was considerable, but thanks to Zhao and Lin having bought all the materials he needed, the complete 450,000 crystals, he could concentrate on his progression without financial worries. The magnate's fortune was safe for now, but Ren was only cultivating his mushroom for now, leaving his Hydra on hold since he needed specific conditions to process the crystals. Min advanced steadily with his snake, and Lin had adopted the 1,000-day method that Ren had taught her. The 1,000-day method is expensive, Zhao had commented when Ren explained it to him, and he was right, because unlike Lin, his beast was Silver 3. The necessary Silver 3 size crystals cost 300 points each, totaling 300,000. Materials of the same grade added another 300,000 per unit, and that unit only served to process 100 crystals. Sealing each batch of 100 required another 100,000 points. So, Zhao had calculated, I would need 3.3 million just for the base materials, plus 1 million for sealing complete process. For 1,300,000 total, Ren confirmed. Zhao had decided to wait and save more before embarking on such an expensive and prolonged method. For now, like Lin, Min, Lu, and Taro, he patiently awaited his eggs hatching. How much longer? Min asked while observing his amphibian egg, which occasionally became transparent. Each has its time, Ren responded while tracing runes on a hyena egg. Yours will be the first ready, then Zhao's raptor. And mine, Lu asked. The hyena needs more time, Ren explained. Master Lin will be third. While his friends discussed, Ren continued working on the eggs, his mushrooms pulsing softly. The process was delicate, requiring precision and patience, but seeing his friends anxiously awaiting their new beast made all the effort worthwhile. Chapter 189, Taming Fame. The morning began as always, Lin dragging Ren to her early morning torture routine. Me too? Taro began to ask when Lin looked at him. And no, the attendance, he hurried to add. Wei still takes role and... Lin narrowed her eyes. Wei hasn't been giving good classes lately. But attendance, Taro insisted. It's important to maintain the record, and my grade could... Lin sighed. Fine, but after final exam, you'll come trained too. Taro had never been so grateful for school bureaucracy. Min and Lu were naturally saved, having other teachers in the first hours. They wouldn't join the torture group until Yang's class. When Taro entered the classroom, Wei was already there, sitting at his desk with a lost look. The usual class murmur seemed more subdued, as if the professor's depressive atmosphere was contagious. Taro, a voice called from behind. It was Mira. Since he had leveled up, Taro had noticed a change in how his classmates treated him, where before they barely noticed his existence. Now there was always someone looking to talk to him, asking for advice, trying to become part of the circle. It was a strange sensation, not necessarily unpleasant, but definitely strange. Have you seen any improvement in Wei? Mira whispered as Taro sat down. He seems worse than yesterday, after Roaring corrected him in class. When he mentioned the canine creatures? Taro asked. Yes. Mira nodded. Wei just froze when Roaring said, as her mentioned me, iron rank canine creatures generally, and simply stopped functioning. Taro made a face that clearly said nothing to be done, but Mira wasn't finished. I'm worried about the final exam, she continued. If even the professors aren't sure what's correct. They're right, Han commented from a nearby seat. How are we supposed to learn if everything they've taught us could be wrong? Wei seemed to shrink in his seat, although the comment had been barely a murmur. Rin should teach this class. Sora turned from the first row, or at least grade the exam. The professor visibly writhed in his chair, as if each word was a needle. After all, Sora continued, apparently unaware of the effect her words were having, he seems to be the only one who really understands. I'll take roll. Wei interrupted with a hoarse voice, raising the attendance list like a shield. Klein, Aster. The students exchanged looks while responding to roll call. Wei seemed smaller than normal. His usual confidence completely evaporated. Fong, Han. Here, Han responded, then added in a low voice, though I don't know if it matters being present when we're not learning anything. Wei trembled slightly. Luna, Mira. Present. Mira responded, her concern about the exam clearly visible on her face. Larissa, Sora. Here. Sora raised her hand. Could we ask Renif? Leora, Rosalind. Wei continued mechanically, as if he hadn't heard. Taro observed his professor, remembering how he used to strut around the classroom, sure of his knowledge, proud of his position. Now he seemed a shadow of himself, reduced to taking roll, as if it was the only thing he could still do with certainty. Hector, Taro. Present. Taro responded, noticing how Wei avoided making eye contact. He was beginning to feel bad for Wei, but only a little. Wei finished taking roll and froze, as if he'd forgotten what came next. He sat heavily at his desk and grabbed his head with both hands. Now what? Mira complained, unconsciously rubbing the bandage on her nose. The final exam is near, and we can't even have a normal class. And on top of that, those new adults who won't stop asking their boring questions since the incident. Are they still bothering you about the mana-blocking moss coverings of your giant rat? Taro asked. They won't stop. Mira grimaced in pain as she touched her nose. It's unbearable. Still hasn't healed from your fall? Han asked, emphasizing the last word with a tone that suggested he didn't quite believe her story. I fell very hard, Mira responded dryly. Such bad luck, Han smiled. They interrogate me all day about my coverings, too. But at least I haven't tripped into any doors. Mira stuck her tongue out in response. Taro. Han abruptly changed the subject, wrapping an arm around his classmate's shoulders. Did you get Run to tell you anything about spiders? Yes. Taro tried to wriggle out of the embrace. But I don't remember well. Better ask him yourself. A collective sigh ran through the group. As if it were that easy, Mira protested. When he's in Yang's class, Lin doesn't let anyone near him to distract him. And during breaks, there's always like 20 people surrounding him, another student added. He never manages to answer anything coherent. You could... Taro smiled mischievously. Follow us to the mines in the afternoon. In separate groups, of course. You'll keep going down to the mines? An elegant voice interrupted. Larissa had peered from her seat, suddenly interested. Wei observed the whole scene, his face a mask of misery. Finally, he seemed to give up. You can leave if you want, he mumbled. Study on your own. Class is over. About time, Jean rudely blurted while standing up and heading to the exit with his hands behind his head and elbows raised. I don't even know why they take roll. Kai and Cass followed him to the door, but most of the class remained congregated around Taro. So Ren really can take any beast of gold? Someone asked. Is it true he made you and Min double summoners? How did he get a Hydra? Why does he know more than Wei? Wade dropped his forehead against the desk with a dull thud that no one seemed to notice. I also heard he has lots of crystals, a girl commented excitedly, and that he knows how to cultivate faster than normal, another added. Mira and Han exchanged looks while Taro was bombarded with questions. Is it true he can evolve beasts that have already matured like Master Lin's? Someone else asked. Wade banged his head against the desk again. Guys, Taro tried to calm the group. You really should ask him directly. But we never can, several protested at once. Maybe if he went to his room, Larissa suggested with a mischievous smile. He won't like that. Taro looked at her alarmed. You shouldn't. But it was too late. He could see the gears turning in his classmates' minds, planning secret expeditions to the Noah Atoll's office. Wei lifted his head only to let it fall once more against the wood. At least being ignored is better, he muttered to himself. They're not making fun of me all day anymore. Nobody heard him. They were too busy interrogating Taro about the best times to accidentally run in his room or the mines. Chapter 190, Taming Fame 2. Do you notice it? Larissa asked while observing the group surrounding Taro. Luna rolled her eyes, pretending to be more interested in her notes than the conversation. Notice what? Larissa smiled and suddenly wrapped her cousin in a hug. Don't play disinterested. It's getting old. Larissa, Luna protested, her cheeks reddening while trying to break free. We're in class. Not anymore, and I won't let go until you admit you've noticed it. Larissa sang near her ear. Luna struggled a moment more before surrendering with a sigh. Fine, yes, I noticed it, she murmured, her voice barely audible. And Larissa loosened her grip a bit, but didn't release her completely. The two beasts inside Taro. Luna continued in a low voice, avoiding looking directly at her cousin. The patterns fluctuate very well between them. Even, she stopped, as if considering whether she should continue. Even what? Leora also leaned in to hear better. Even better than Julius's synergy. Luna completed quickly. His is simple because at least it's the same element, but this must be Ren's work, Leora suggested thoughtfully. If what little you told us about what happened in the seed is true. Speaking of Ren, Larissa interrupted and smiled while finally releasing Luna. What do you say we ask his advice about what second beast we should? Sure. Luna and Leora interrupted simultaneously, frantically looking around. The mere mention of second beast had put them on high alert. Are you crazy? Luna hissed. You can't talk about that here. About what? Larissa smiled innocently. About how the three of us are. Leora covered her mouth with a hand, while Luna looked about to faint. All right. Larissa laughed when Leora finally released her. But I'm going to ask him after class. You can come if you want. We can't just, Luna began. Why not? Larissa interrupted. Nobody will suspect if we just ask him theoretical questions. Everyone's obsessed with Ren, lately anyway. It was true, looking around the classroom. At least half the class was trying to get close to Taro just to obtain information about his luminous friend. Besides, Larissa added with mischievous gleam in her eyes, don't you want to know what beast could better complement your powerful first beasts? Luna and Leora exchanged looks. The temptation was evident on their faces. Just theoretical questions, Luna murmured, as if trying to convince herself. Purely academic. Leora nodded. Of course, Larissa smiled. Though, she added while watching Taro being bombarded with questions, maybe we should wait for the crowd to disperse a bit. We don't want anyone else hearing our academic theories. Her cousins nodded vigorously, though Larissa noticed how their eyes occasionally drifted toward the group around Taro, clearly anxious for answers. This will be fun, she thought while her mineral fairy pulsed softly. It's strange, Han commented as they walked toward Yang's class. I always thought the Grey Wing was for, well, you know, losers. Taro completed with a smile, remembering his own initial prejudices. I didn't mean it like that. Han waved his hands, embarrassed. It's just that... It's okay, Taro laughed. I thought the same before getting there. Turns out the Grey Wing was the best thing that could have happened to me. The best. Mira approached, still touching her nose. Well, he certainly didn't lie about the different beast and faster cultivation, but maybe it's too soon to... Min. Taro looked at her worriedly. Don't you want to ask Min for help? His water snake has healing abilities, and the nurse said it would heal on its own. Mira interrupted quickly, though Taro noticed how she avoided eye contact. Doesn't it hurt? Han leaned in to examine Myra's nose, his eyes shining with genuine concern. Despite his serious expression, there was something adorably childlike in how he wrinkled his forehead. Just a little. Mira touched the bandage carefully, her small fingers tracing its edge. But I want to hear more about the gray wing. What about you, Taro? Several more students approached. Curious. Most had never thought much about the dormitory's other wings. My family has a restaurant in the Tarragon district. Taro explained. We're a minor branch of the family, but the business is doing well. Tarragon? Han whistled impressed. The family with the most Earth controllers? A very, very minor branch, Taro emphasized. So minor I only visited once a year. All I got from that was the brown egg. I thought I was doomed when they gave me the beetle. But you were wrong, Mira smiled. You were the first to evolve. Thanks to Run, Taro added automatically. Besides, he's bronze now too, so... Ren doesn't count, someone commented from behind. Nobody has really seen his evolution. It's true, another voice added. We just know his mushrooms glow a bit more. Taro contained a smile, remembering the true form of Ren's mushroom. If they heard it, they'd... The point is, he continued, that the gray wing doesn't determine your potential. Mira, I can't stop looking at your nose. I insist men help you. If not now, then in the room after class. Ren and Lou will be there. Mira tensed at hearing Lou's name. It's just, she began quietly. I don't want to cause trouble with everything that's happening. Trouble? Taro arched an eyebrow. Men would be delighted to help. Really, it's not. Larissa, who had been observing the interaction with Luna and Leora, approached casually. It's curious, she commented with feigned innocence, how some accidents happen right after certain uncomfortable questions. Luna gave her a subtle elbow, but her eyes also showed concern. It's nothing, Mira insisted, though her voice trembled slightly. I just tripped and hit my nose. These hallways can be treacherous, Leora commented softly, her gaze meeting Myra's, especially when certain adults are asking too many questions. Larissa added, her usual playful tone replaced by something more serious. Taro observed the two. Mira, with her bandaged nose, and Han. Both tried to appear strong, while carrying an invisible weight. Chapter 191, Taming Fame 3. Mira and Han exchanged nervous glances as the girls' hints began to pile up. The tension was visible in their small shoulders. Han, Taro intervened, noticing their discomfort. What kind of questions had they been asking you? The adults seem very interested in you two lately. Han scratched his head, avoiding eye contact. His fingers trembled slightly as they ran through his messy hair. It's nothing important. I just told them I skipped some Aways classes. He shrugged, trying to appear casual. Sometimes I hide to sleep in different places because my roommates are too noisy at night. Han, Taro scolded, though concern tinged his voice. That's bad. What if Way fails you? Myra's cheeks flushed crimson, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her uniform. I've done it too sometimes, she admitted in a whisper that barely carried. The dormitory with Cass can be tense. You're lying. Luna stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of irritation and worry. The Shadow Wolf's influence made her gaze particularly penetrating. I can sense some falsehood in your words. If you won't be honest, I might mention these half-truths to the adults who show such interest in you. Lie detection again. The effect was immediate. Han and Mira visibly stiffened under that scrutiny, having faced it too many times this week already. It's not just that. Han finally sighed, his shoulders slumping under an invisible weight. It's also my sister. Your sister? Larissa leaned in, genuine interest replacing her usual playful demeanor. She's very sick. Han's voice dropped to barely a whisper, as if the words themselves hurt to speak. I write to her almost every day, but his eyes drifted to a distant point. My dormitory is the same as that idiot Jin's and his crony Kai. I didn't want them to mock my... Are you ashamed of writing to your sister? Leora asked softly, her gentle tone free of judgment. No. Han protested immediately, his voice cracking. It's just that it's already hard enough to endure that room without them knowing. Jean has a way of making even the most important things sound stupid. Mira clenched her fists, gathering courage. I practice with my mana coverings, she blurted suddenly. And hiding. A lot. Why? Taro asked. Because... Mira swallowed hard, her throat working visibly. Because when I leave school, I'm going to run away from home. I won't let them force me to marry that fat, ugly noble I've never even met in person. Stunned silence fell over the group like a heavy blanket. You're going to break an arranged marriage? Luna whispered, her eyes widening in shock. My family says it's an honor, Mira continued, the words tumbling out like a broken dam, that I should be grateful someone of his position is interested in our family. But her voice cracked, raw emotion bleeding through. I just want to be free. That's why you practice so much with the coverings, Leora murmured, understanding dawning in her eyes. And why you hide sometimes, Larissa added. You're preparing. Luna, Larissa, and Leora exchanged meaningful looks. Suddenly, the absences and strained behaviors took on new meaning. You know, Larissa began, a mischievous smile playing on her lips, I know some excellent hiding places. And I know quite a few stories from grandmother about breaking arranged marriages, Leora added, a spark of rebellion glinting in her eyes. Mira and Han exchanged glances. The tension in their shoulders began to ease, if only slightly. Besides, Larissa added gently, some of us understand what it's like to have to keep secrets. And how important it is to protect them, Luna completed, her hand unconsciously touching where she kept a certain letter. Mira looked at Taro, who nodded slightly. Maybe, she began, hope creeping into her voice, maybe we could talk after class. After we get some answers about certain synergy theories, Larissa added, earning another warning look from Luna. And after Min checks that nose, Taro insisted kindly, he won't mind. Mira asked hopefully. Not at all, Taro smiled. He always says he needs practice. Though with Lin as a teacher, I think he gets more than enough practice healing our muscles. The bell rang, interrupting the group's laughter. Speaking of Lin, Han sighed as they hurried along. Think she'll make us run while carrying weights again today? It's Lin, they all responded in unison. And do you think Yang will make us practice combat today? Han asked, his voice regaining some of its childlike innocence. I hope not. Mira made a comic grimace. My nose isn't ready for more adventures. The group's laughter echoed through the hallway, mixing with other students' conversations. For a moment, they were just children heading to class, sharing a moment of normalcy amid jokes and worries. Even if some of them had more secrets than others. You're 5 seconds late. Lin's voice resonated across the field. Speaking of trouble, Han muttered, 100 extra laps. Lin continued, though her smile suggested she was more amused than angry. You got me? Taro panted while keeping pace with Run and Min during their laps around the field. I just have to heal Mira? Min adjusted his stride to maintain conversation. No problem. Thanks, Taro nodded. But there won't be time after class to help them with cultivation today, Rin added, his voice low but firm as he continued running. I need you to help me make another tunnel today. Another tunnel? Taro nearly stumbled. Today? But the others wanted... I don't want them following us down. Rin shook his head. It's risky enough with just us. Taro scratched his head as they completed another lap. About that, I think they're going to follow us anyway. You've seen how everyone's been lately, especially after I evolved. Rin sighed, his mushrooms pulsing with what seemed like resignation. I was afraid of that. We could divide them into groups, Min suggested. Take turns or something. Actually, Rin increased his pace, ensuring no one else could hear them. It's allowed to take a group of 6 down to 200 meters. 200? Min whistled low. That doesn't sound. Only if we have 2 bronze rank in a group, Rin specified. Though, I want to go down to 300. I guess the last meters will have to wait until tomorrow. The last meters? Taro frowned. 300? Ren's mushrooms pulsed with a glow his friends had learned to recognize as contained excitement. Enough to reach where we need. And what exactly do we need? Min asked while trying to keep Ren's pace. A small vein, Ren responded simply, for cultivation. Chapter 192, Taming Fame 4. And what exactly do we need? Min asked while trying to keep Ren's pace. A small vein, Ren responded simply, for cultivation. Taro and Min exchanged glances, their eyes meeting in a silent conversation born from months of friendship. What if we get caught? Min asked, though his tone held more excitement than concern. We won't, Rin smiled, his mushrooms pulsing with quiet confidence. Not if we close the tunnel properly. I'll explain everything after class, when we're all together. For now, let's focus on surviving Lin's training. As if summoned by the mere mention of her name, their teacher's voice thundered across the field. Too much talking. 50 more laps. The 3 friends groaned in unison but kept running, their feet pounding against the packed earth in a steady rhythm. After completing all their exercises, muscles trembling from exertion. Attention! Yang's voice boomed across the training field, cutting through the scattered conversations like a blade. I have an important announcement. The students gathered, many still panting from their workout. Lin took her place beside Yang, her crane's feathers gleaming in the morning light. Final exams begin in 1 month, Yang continued, his stone behemoth manifesting subtly in his skin, creating rippling patterns like living granite. And this time will be different. A wave of anticipation swept through the group, raising the hairs on the back of their necks. This won't be just a friendly match between yourselves, Yang smiled, though gravity lurked in his eyes. You'll face a real bronze rank beast. The murmur transformed into exclamations of surprise and worry, voices rising in concern. A real bronze beast? Someone asked from back, their voice cracking. I thought you were joking on the first day to scare us. We're iron students. That's why you'll be allowed weapons again and work in groups of 3. Lin cut through the rising panic, her voice sharp and precise. You have a month to prepare yourselves mentally. Learning to kill beasts is crucial for your future. Yang pressed on. What matters is your ability to face a real threat. The hordes don't discriminate, and in the outside world, monsters won't wait until you're ready. There will also be matches between you with no weapons again, Lin added, both individual and in groups of 3. Other classes will join for these trials, and it won't be as friendly. Your exam results and rank are at stake this time. Students exchanged wary glances. The mention of other classes meant more competition, more chances to shine or to fail spectacularly. Your performance in these exams, Yang emphasized each word, his stone patterns gleaming, will determine if you advance to Bronze 1 next semester. This isn't just a skill test. It's your chance to rise in rank. Groups must register this week, Lin continued, her eyes scanning the gathered students. Choose wisely. Skill balance will be crucial. What kind of bronze beast will it be? Jean asked, his tiger markings glowing with poorly concealed eagerness. You'll find out on exam day, Yang replied, his expression unreadable. Be prepared for anything. What if we fail? A trembling voice asked from the back of the crowd. Then you'll remain iron rank. Lin answered simply, her words falling like stones in still water. And watch your companions advance without you. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush dreams. 1 month, Yang repeated, his voice resonating with finality. Use this time wisely. Study, train, prepare. Because when you face that bronze beast, there won't be second chances. And remember, Yang concluded, his grave voice echoing across the field, this is the first real trial you'll face as tamers. What happens here will determine not just your rank, but your future at the academy. The students began to disperse, forming small clusters to discuss the news. The air hummed with a mixture of excitement and anxiety, like the calm before a storm. The month ahead promised to be intense. The final exams would be a trial by fire, a chance to rise, or to be left behind. Unacceptable. May slammed her hand against her desk, making several students jump in their seats. An entire class missed without explanation, and you waltz in as if nothing happened. Her gaze swept over the culprits. Ren, Taro, and Min, the two groups of noble cousins with their follower students Maria, Mayo, and Matilda, and the 6 new girls. All tried to make themselves as small as possible under her withering stare. The new way might ignore your absences, she continued, her vine manifestation rippling across her skin with irritation. Professor May, Larissa stepped forward, wearing her most charming smile. Allow me to explain. Larissa outlined the situation broadly. Apparently, Lynn had explained everything to Yom, but nobody had remembered to inform May. No, my dear, May cut her off. Not even an infiltrated child from Yino can justify this. It's not the student's responsibility to handle such matters. All that commotion, having to take students to shelter, and it just happens to involve precisely the students who missed my class. The new girls shifted uncomfortably. They were supposed to protect the girls, not cause academic problems. And you, Run, May turned to him, her eyes narrowing. Your shenanigans are causing more and more problems. First the crazy theories, then the interruptions, and now unjustified absences. I'll have to deduct points for first time over this. Ren's mushrooms pulsed rapidly as he considered his options. Professor, he began softly, may I make an observation? Don't try to change the subject. It's about your megaphila vine, Ren continued, unfazed. Don't you find it curious that its silver one only grants 40% vitality, compared to its 120% in wind control? May halted mid-scolding, her eyes widening slightly. That's normal for this type of beast, she responded, though doubt had crept into her voice. It's really a shame, Ren smiled gently. With the correct method, it could easily reach 80%. You look even younger. The last words caught May's attention completely. Her hand unconsciously rose to her face. Younger? Oh, yes. Ren nodded. His mushrooms pulsed with apparent enthusiasm. It's just a matter of applying a new cultivation method that Professor Zhao and Master Lin are already practicing. Have you noticed how the leaves tend to lean north during certain nights? How do you know that? May asked, genuinely surprised. The patterns are quite clear, Ren explained. If you absorb crystals processed during the correct lunar phases. Enough. May raised a hand, though her tone had lost all hostility. Perhaps we could discuss this after class. Of course, Ren smiled innocently, though about the points. The points, May coughed, composing herself. Well, considering the special circumstances, and given that you seem to have some interesting theories to discuss. Shall we start class? Larissa suggested sweetly. Yes. May nodded, shuffling her papers and attempting to regain her dignity. Everyone take your seats. And Ren. Yes, Professor? I'll see you after class. A small smile tugged at her lips. To discuss these theories of yours. As the students settled in, Min leaned toward Run. You're terrible, he whispered. Do you really know how to improve her vitality? Ren's mushrooms pulsed with what was definitely amusement. Of course, he replied quietly. It'll take 1,000 days, but that'll give her something more interesting to think about than our absences. Taro, overhearing the conversation, could only shake his head with a smile. His friend was turning the art of distracting teachers with real knowledge into an exact science. Chapter 193, Taming Fame 5. After May's class and explaining some details about processing the first 100 crystals, and strategically skipping Song's optional class, Ren finally met with Taro and Min at the agreed spot. His mushrooms pulsed with resignation when he saw they weren't alone. Mira and Han stood nearby, surrounded by the 4 groups of noble girls. Far too many people for a discreet expedition. I managed to convince Mira and Han's 4 team members to wait. Taro scratched his head with an apologetic smile. And Hector's group understood it was better to try another day. But we're not missing this. Larissa stepped forward with mischievous smile, her mineral fairy glowing faintly in her hair. Don't worry, we have our own bronze rank guides. She gestured to the students accompanying them. Rin sighed, his mushrooms pulsing with what could only be described as defeated acceptance. I suppose I don't have a choice. No, you don't, Luna confirmed, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. It'll be fun, Leora added softly, though her gentle tone did nothing to hide her excitement. Rin shouldered his pack and started walking toward the caves. The group followed, keeping their conversations to hushed whispers. At the entrance, the guard greeted them with a familiar smile. Lucky Shroom, he called cheerfully while pulling out the registry. Another productive expedition today. Rin nodded while filling out the form. The guard leaned casually over the paper, but his expression shifted dramatically as he read the details. 200 meters? His eyebrows shot up. And you're registering as bronze? You and Taro. We've registered that way 2 days before, too, Rin replied calmly. The guard frowned and began reviewing previous records. His eyes widened. It's true, he muttered. Sorry. You're so consistent every day I stopped checking and never really. He paused, pulling a special lens from his desk. He held it up before Run and Taro, and his jaw nearly hit the floor. By the 12 moons, he exclaimed. Not only are you bronze, but this level of mana and those are... He stopped, staring at Taro in amazement. 2 beast cores. Silence fell over the group like a heavy blanket. All eyes turned to Taro, who suddenly found his shoes absolutely fascinating. 2 beasts! Han was the first to recover his voice. Wasn't Rin the only one who got a new one? When did this happen? Mira asked, her eyes as wide as saucers. Why didn't you tell us? Several voices joined the interrogation. Min started laughing, leaning against a wall to keep himself upright. Sorry, he managed between fits of laughter. It's just if you knew his mouth. It's not a big deal. Taro tried to deflect attention, but the questions only intensified. What kind of beast is it? How did you get it? Can it make tunnels too? Enough, Rin intervened, his voice cutting through the chaos. We have work to do. Questions can wait. But Han began to protest. 200 meters, Rin reminded them. We need to move soon. The guard, recovering from his surprise, began stamping everyone's permits. Be careful, Lucky Shroom, he warned. At that depth, even bronze beasts need to watch out for common worms and, though rare, hunter bugs. Taro shifted uncomfortably, with a forced smile. We know. Rin nodded while pocketing the papers. Everyone ready? The group nodded, though curious glances at Taro didn't diminish. Keep your secrets for now. Larissa smiled as she passed Taro. But eventually we'll want the full story. And it better be good, Luna added. Oh, it is... Min, who had finally controlled his laughter, grinned widely, especially the part about his mouth becoming... Min. Taro cut him off, his face flushing crimson. Let's go. Rin started descending, his mushrooms illuminating the path. And remember, no separating from the group. As they ventured into the darkness, whispers and theories about Taro's second beast continued. Min occasionally let out a giggle, earning death glares from his friend. At least, Rin thought, this will keep them distracted from asking more uncomfortable questions about me. Your sacrifice will be honored, my warrior Taro. His mushrooms pulsed softly, as if in agreement. As they descended through the tunnels, Larissa stealthily approached Ron. Without warning, she leaned in and whispered directly in his ear. What would be a good synergy for my beast? Since you made me a double. Rin startled, blushing slightly at both the proximity and the tickle of her breath. But the chillin' is out, she continued before he could respond. I can't get one, so don't even suggest it. Ren's mushrooms pulsed as he entered analysis mode. Actually, he began, regaining his composure. The chillin' wouldn't be the best option, though you might assume so because of the earth element synergy. No. Larissa arched an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. A wind lynx would be far more effective, Rin explained, his mushrooms pulsing with enthusiasm. Its natural perception and speed would perfectly complement your jumps. Nobody could catch you from behind so easily again. Interesting. Larissa blushed remembering, but moved even closer, completely ignoring the concept of personal space. But are those all the synergies? Other beasts have enhanced senses, and speed too, even... The ice crystals that the lynx generates in its higher evolutions, Rin continued, try to maintain focus despite her pressing proximity, have a natural affinity with your fairy's minerals. You could create more complex and resistant crystalline structures, even manipulate the environment to your advantage. Sounds promising, Larissa smiled, but I've only heard of lynx reaching bronze 2 at most. Would you help me find a technique to take it higher? Of course, Rin nodded. After this we can... Excellent. Larissa interrupted, and just when Rin thought she'd finally leave him in peace, she added, What about Luna and Leora? Rin sighed, but his mushrooms pulsed with what seemed like amused resignation. Luna has a situation similar to yours, he began. The white celestial tiger her father uses would be perfect. Being a light beast, it would create a perfect balance with her wolf's darkness. Like yin and yang? Larissa asked, fascinated. Exactly. Both beasts would also mutually amplify their general elemental control. The tiger's speed and perception would complement her jumps to, like your case. And Leora? A demonic bash, Rin answered without hesitation. Her will-o-wisp is already powerful, but with the bash spirit manipulation ability. Spirit manipulation? The bash can alter how energy flows through the body, Rin explained. Combined with the will-o-wisp, she can make parts of her body temporarily become black spirit fire and intangible. Intangible? Larissa's eyes sparkled with interest. Yes, plus trying to hit her would burn enemies. But this is all basic, Rin clarified. Without a specific strategy or combat style defined by you, I'm just suggesting the natural synergies I consider strongest. The true potential will depend on how you decide to use your combinations. Larissa fell silent for a moment, processing the information. You know, she finally said, a playful smile forming on her lips, you understand so much about evolution and synergy. Maybe I should... Before she could finish, Taro called from ahead. First checkpoint ahead, guards there. We'll continue this conversation later. Larissa winked before moving away to rejoin her cousins. Rin watched her go, his mushrooms pulsing softly. Everything okay? Min asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. Just thinking, Rin responded, about how interesting it'll be to see what they do with that information. Did you tell her something about their beasts? Just a little, Rin smiled. His mushrooms pulsed once more as they signed in with the guard and resumed their descent. After all, they'd still need more information. The real challenge for rich people perhaps wasn't obtaining a second beast, but cultivating it and learning to use it properly. Chapter 194, Taming Fame 6. After signing in, the group continued their descent into the depths. There are more students than usual, Min observed as they sidestepped another group climbing up laden with crystals. Picks clinked against the stone walls, and earth beasts were the norm here, the sound of mining echoing through the tunnels. It's the semester's final stretch, one of the noble girls' student escort explained. Many upperclassmen try to increase their productivity around this time to pass the gathering unit. As they crossed below 150 meters, the mana density began affecting the group. Beasts started manifesting in preparation for any lesser worms. Taro's living tunnel creating patterns across his skin, and Luna's wolf projecting denser shadows that seemed to crawl along the walls were some examples. Only Leora and Larissa kept their beasts completely hidden, though the tension in their postures suggested they too felt the pressure of uncertainty. They could have entered through Ren's ex-secret tunnel. Leora and the escorts already knew about it and had expanded it. But with adults still investigating the seed from outside, Ren had decided to write it off. Ren's mushrooms pulsed softly, detecting several lesser worms nearby. They weren't a real threat to the group, but their presence indicated they were entering more dangerous territory. Before they could cross to the next level, the sound of approaching voices and footsteps made them halt. A new group of 6 older students was climbing up. Ren immediately recognized one of them. They were fifth-year students, and among them was Leopold, the same one who had demanded special attention from Finch at the bank. Ren lowered his gaze, hoping to avoid any confrontation, but, well, Leopold's voice shattered the silence between both groups. If it isn't the mushroom magnate. The group stopped. Leopold stepped forward, his golden robes gleaming even in the dim light. Don't think you'll surpass me just with luck, he continued, his tone dripping with disdain. Don't expect another miracle just because you wander around here. I've investigated everything about the Hydra and the gifts you receive from the prince. But that's not enough to stand out. You need to shine in many areas, and with a miserable spore. One of his companions suddenly leaned in, whispering something in his ear. Leopold's expression shifted subtly. Noble candidates? He murmured, loud enough for everyone to hear. These first-year children? Leora and Larissa exchanged glances, their fingers touching their chins in identical gestures of contemplation. I wonder who leaked that information, Larissa mused internally. Grandmother might have spread it. She has a peculiar sense of humor, Leora pondered. Julius enjoys these political games, Larissa finally inferred. Even the director could be involved, Leora continued thinking. What better way to make the academy stand out among the other two schools than boasting about having such young double-tamers? Wren's mushrooms pulsed with what seemed like resignation. The secret apparently wasn't so secret anymore. They're just iron students. Leopold spat, though his voice had lost some of its initial arrogance. If you could find a miracle, I'll find one too. I won't let some novices surpass me. No one's trying to surpass you, Wren finally spoke. We're just working on our own path. Your own path? Leopold laughed, but there was tension in his laughter. Don't you understand? If you aim upward, you aim at me. Leopold. One of his companions interrupted. We still have several things to process to get the crystals from. Fine. Leopold turned sharply. Let's go. But this isn't over. Minor magnate. As the fifth-year group moved away, Mira approached Ron. Is he your friend? She asked quietly. It's rival pride, Han answered before Ren could. My sister says upper-year students hate when someone younger surpasses them. Especially that someone has mushrooms instead of a proper beast, Min added with a smile. Well, Taro intervened. At least now we know why there's been so much interest in our group lately. Seems like many already know. The annoying Parfame, Larissa sighed dramatically. That's what you get for finding something extraordinary. We should continue, Rin suggested, trying to evade the topic. I need to find a good spot before it gets late. The group resumed their descent, but now there was a new element in the air, the sensation that somehow they were at the center of everything. You think it was your grandmother? Luna whispered to Leora as they walked. Maybe Julius? Leora added with a small smile. Knowing both, Larissa joined conversation. I have no idea who moved first. They love creating chaos. Their soft laughter mixed with the echo of their footsteps as they ventured deeper into the mines, leaving politics and rivalries behind, at least for the moment. Rin studied each intersection carefully, his mushrooms pulsing as he analyzed the veins and monster activity patterns. He was looking for something specific, an area that other students would naturally avoid. Watch out! Min warned of a lesser worm emerging from the ground. They're really annoying, Taro commented as his living tunnel detected and crushed another. Weak, but those bites are dangerous. Just keep moving, one of the nobles' student escorts explained, and stay alert to ground vibrations. Luna observed Ren with growing irritation. Her eyes followed his every movement as he examined the walls, ignoring veins that any other student would have considered valuable. What exactly are you looking for? She finally asked, her tone mixing curiosity with annoyance. The perfect entrance, Ren responded distractedly, his mushrooms pulsing faster as they neared their objective. Another worm emerged, but Luna's wolf dispatched it with a casual swipe of its shadowy claws. Entrance to what? Larissa joined the interrogation, her interest clearly piqued. Ren stopped abruptly, his mushrooms illuminating a crack in the wall. It was small, almost invisible if you didn't know what to look for, and completely devoid of crystals around its edges. To my new secret route to this, he pointed at the opening. Nobody would come here. There are no visible crystals, and the space is too narrow to be comfortable. And that makes it perfect because... Mira let the question hang. Because nobody will follow us. Rin smiled, his mushrooms pulsing with what seemed like anticipation. Without further explanation, he began squeezing through the crack. His thin body barely fit through the opening. Are you sure about this? Han asked. looking at the narrow space with apprehension. Absolutely. Ren's voice came from inside. It's time to head for the real objective. Chapter 195, Taming Fame 7. Are you sure about this? Han asked, looking at the narrow space with apprehension. Absolutely. Ren's voice came from inside. It's time to head for the real objective. Min and Taro exchanged knowing looks before following him into the darkness. Larissa smiled at her cousins, her eyes gleaming with barely contained curiosity. One by one, they slipped through the crack. The students took strategic positions to keep watch while the group entered. Luna was the last to pass through. Before entering, her eyes swept the area one final time. There was something about the way Run had been searching, something in the precision of his movements. "You weren't lost at all, were you?" she murmured as she slid through the opening. "You knew exactly what you were looking for from the beginning." Ren's mushrooms pulsed softly in the darkness, but he offered no response. "This way," he directed his Hydra. "I need a tunnel descending at a 45-degree angle in that direction. Taro," he turned to his friend, "could you start lining it with living minerals?" And he looked at the girl with the Earth Wolverine. "Your help would be useful at the front with my Hydra." The girl frowned. "I'm not your excavation tool." "Shizu," Larissa intervened with a smile that brooked no argument. "Please help her make the tunnel." The girl sighed but nodded, her manifested Wolverine joining the digging efforts. While they began working, Han and Mira approached Ren timidly. Han started. "About our beasts, could you tell us if we're doing anything wrong?" Mira completed the question. "We'll pay whatever you want when we can, or you can ask us for favors," Han added. Ren turned to Larissa with narrowed eyes, a clear reproach for not having offered anything in exchange for the information he'd given her earlier. The princess simply smiled, completely immune to his accusing gaze. "Don't worry about that," Ren sighed. "Just remember that I helped you if I ever need your support." "Just that?" Kira, the girl with the giant goat, arched an eyebrow. "You're not very greedy for an outskirts boy." Ren's mushrooms pulsed as he responded. "My parents have lived a long life, and they always taught me that the most important things are the connections you make with people around you, not what you can get from them." "Why?" Matilda asked. "Because we all might end up needing help in life," Ren explained, his mushrooms emitting a gentle glow. "Even the richest, or so my father said. And I believe him." He turned to Mira. "Your cultivation is going well, but you need a change when you expose your crystals to seal the process. Use the midday sun for 20 minutes instead of morning light." "Why?" Mira asked, genuinely curious. "Solar energy is more intense and pure at that point," Ren explained. "Your giant rat needs that specific density to properly develop its plants." Then he addressed Han. "Your spider is also on the right track, but you need to change the web you're using. Common weaver web isn't optimal. You need greater weaver spider web from your own species. But that's harder to get," Han protested. "And more expensive for being bronze rank," Ren added. "But a higher rank web is what weavers consume when they hatch in the cocoon, left by a higher rank one to cover the cores they collect and turn into eggs." Also, Ren searched his knowledge. "What rune did they suggest?" Han scratched his head. "They recommended using an attack rune for sealing." "Use an agility one," Ren interrupted. "I know the hunter spider that would be the evolution from a method you're following seems to have more potential, because records say it reaches Silver 3, while the weaver only reaches Silver 1. But that's a mistake." Han's eyes widened in surprise. "A mistake?" "Unlike the hunter, the weaver can surpass Silver rank," Ren nodded, his mushrooms pulsing with certainty. "It just needs the correct cultivation method." Han and Mira stood contemplating, seemingly trying to burn the information into their minds. Larissa appeared at Ren's side, practically hanging off his arm. "Since you gave me that reproachful look, let's make something clear." She smiled mischievously while whispering in his ear. "You forced me to be a double tamer, so you'll have to take responsibility. Wasn't that what you really wanted?" "Mana doesn't lie." Ren blinked in confusion. "Of course." Larissa nodded with feigned seriousness. "But you gave me that potion without warning and without my consent. Now you'll have to help me with the whole process to redeem your misdeeds." Well, yes. Thinking about it that way, you're right, that was wrong, but Ren began to protest. No buts, Larissa smiled. You're already stuck with me in this. As the group continued advancing, Han and Mira exchanged glances. There was something comforting about how Ren shared his knowledge so freely, asking only friendship in return. You know, Han murmured to Mira, I think we can really trust him. Mira nodded, watching how Ren's mushrooms illuminated the path ahead. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt they had found true allies. Ren resigned himself. All right, I would have helped you with the information without asking for anything anyway. It was just that Mira and Han looked better than you. I was joking. I'll support you without doubt when you need in return. Larissa smiled and stuck closer to Ren, amused by his reactions. Luna observed the interaction from the side, her eyes narrowing at her cousin's boldness in invading personal space. She would never do something like that with... Her cheeks colored slightly at the thought, and she quickly looked away. Oh! Larissa, who had noticed her cousin's blush and reaction, smiled mischievously and moved close to her. What do we have here? I smell jealousy in the air, she whispered in Luna's ear. I don't know what you're talking about. Luna responded with dignity, though her cheeks burned brighter. Really, Larissa practically hung off Ren's arm again. Doesn't he have a nice face when he's explaining things? Larissa? Luna protested, her wolf ears and tail manifesting and bristling in reflection of her embarrassment. Why, you shouldn't do that. Ren tried to free himself from Larissa's grip, his mushrooms pulsing erratically. We're in a dangerous place, and... Larissa laughed. Isn't Luna adorable? Ren was about to respond, and Luna about to shout when the ground began to tremble.